MCU.html Reassembled is brought to you by the Cage Club Network for all things movies, media, TV, comics, and music and more. Check out the Cage Club Network at cageclub.me. That's cageclub.me.
Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
I'm Kevo.
And this is MCU.html/Falcon and Winter Soldier Season 1, Episode 1, Disney Plus Super Awesome Superhero Show.
That title is way too long. As it is, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is far too long a title for a TV show, and all to make some kind of pun on a weird spy movie from the 70s with Sean Penn and Timothy Hutton that no one gets.
Yeah, I had to look it up myself to remember and make sure that I knew what I was talking about. It was definitely one that was not clear in my mind, at the forefront of my mind. But you know what? Regardless of any titling, I loved this first episode. I thought it was a really great spiritual successor to the first three Captain America films. It really kind of carried through that sort of line of that like 70s spy espionage action thriller. And it was exciting to get to see new characters in those roles, as opposed to seeing the same character performatively do the same kind of thing. I mean, honestly, I thought this continued the thematic ideas presented in the first three Captain Americas probably better than, say, Endgame and Infinity War did for Avengers Assemble and Age of Ultron.
Really?
Yeah, you know, Age of Ultron and Avengers Assemble felt very much like we have these Avengers, put them in a movie, introduce the Scarlet Witch, whereas Infinity War and Endgame felt like events that were thought out from a beginning point to an end point with all of the steps in between laid out pretty carefully. It felt like two very different creatures.
I get that. A lot of people have also commented in general on the Captain America Winter Soldier and even Captain America Civil War being very, as you said, that 70s spy thriller, very political thriller, which isn't exactly my cup of tea, but it's something they do very well, and it's something that they definitely do well enough that I find myself very engaged. I think one of the things that probably helped keep the theme of the second two Captain America movies is the return of composer Henry Jackman, who did the music for those films as well as a ton of other comic book and action films.
I loved him as Wolverine.
He is back scoring this season, which I don't know that he's ever done television before, so that's exciting. It's really cool, the names they're able to get on these things.
Now, speaking of the creative credits, Kevo, I think you know something about the people that created this thing?
Yes, we're not going to do our super in-depth HTML stuff for these response videos, but we have the names of the people who are working on it. The first episode was written by Malcolm Spellman, and this episode, as well as I believe the whole first season, is directed by Carrie Skoglund, which it's very cool that we are getting a female director on such a male-driven, action-driven series.
Absolutely. And I think you can see right off the bat that this isn't your standard male superhero fare. It is a much more intimately thought out presentation of these ideas. Now, I know we're familiar with a number of these major characters, whether it's the amazing Sam Wilson, who remains the light of my life. I mean, I always want him on my left. Or it was the incredible appearance from Rhodey, which I just didn't see coming. Oh, it made me so happy. And you know what? I'll say it. This is the most pleasant I have ever found Bucky.
And not even that pleasant.
No.
I still don't feel like he has a ton of personality from this episode other than remorse.
But he's got a great new haircut.
Yes, loving that haircut. And, please feel free to keep taking pages out of the early 2000s brooding, dark, mysterious guy handbook for a little while. He's funnier than Angel was on Buffy, so you got to give him that at least.
I mean, I just think he dresses like Eraserhead from My Hero Academia.
No, that was before the haircut.
Oh, this is true. He's got like Jessica Jones' scarf.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no.
Now, it's also important to mention that this episode featured the return of such an important Marvel Cinematic Universe character. It had me jumping. Of course, everybody's favorite parkour performing sugar glider, Batroc the Leaper, showed up and leapt back into our hearts.
Did a lot of leaping.
He did so much leaping. He really does look like he's a parasailing Wolverine most of the time, but I find him cute. And,
Yeah, he's handsome. He's a handsome guy.
you know, he's not the most annoying bad guy in the world.
We knew that Georges Batroc was going to be back for this episode, and I like pointing out his first name because he shares a first name with the actor.
Oh, cute.
And it's just fun to say Georges.
Like Joey Lawrence. That's the only other time that's ever happened.
Only time it's ever happened
Only
in the
other
history
time.
of American cinema. Neither of us really knew right away that it was Batroc. So if that was something that was supposed to be like, oh man, that's the guy from Captain America and the Winter Soldier 7 years ago. No, it didn't really come across.
Not
That-
so much.
That's okay though, because not every single cameo needs to leap at you like that.
I just got what you did there.
I didn't do it on purpose, actually.
Ah!
That's how little I care about the character.
Well,
Maybe we'll see him again.
maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe, but I would have much rather seen a character that I do care about. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was a little girl, my father was wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. I want Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter to show up and bring every ounce of that Emily Thorne realness. I'm ready for her, and I don't want her to necessarily date either guy. I don't.
No,
need
I
a
don't
love
need that.
story there. I just need her to come in and be Sharon Carter and kick ass, and that's what I want from her right now.
And we were discussing it and being like, we love Emily Van Camp from Revenge, and neither of us watched Everwood, really.
Never would for me.
Neither of us watched Brothers and Sisters, really.
I took them to family court. They can't come within 50 feet of me.
We're not watching The Resident, even though we love Matt Zuckery.
Matt Zuckery is a specific kind of delicious icing
Oh my
on top of a
God.
specific kind of delicious cupcake.
He's aging so well.
He's aging in a way that like Pedro Pascal's. It's just
Yeah.
it's getting unfair to other men.
Anyway, but we love her,
We love
and
her.
we wanted more from her in the Captain America series. We didn't get much, unfortunately, because they were already so densely packed. But, there's room for her character to spread her own wings, so to speak. There's only 5 more chances for her to appear in this season. Get on it. Get on it. Give us Emily Van Camp. It's what the people want.
It's what the people want. And another thing that I'll say that the people definitely want is I personally want more Sarah Wilson immediately.
Yeah, I
I-
loved her.
She was amazing. She was a real character. She had personality. She had energy. She had emotion. She played an interesting thing we don't see a lot in the Marvel Universe. If Cap says you're a cool dude, nobody fucks with you. And Cap always said that Sam was the bomb, so nobody ever fucked with Sam. This was the first time I think somebody was like, excuse me, who are you?
Well, it's family.
And that was a cool treat to see for that character. It added a level of depth to him he needed.
Is that a character from the comics?
Yeah, and she's an old character from
Okay.
the comics. So this is them really digging in, knowing their history. She's appeared since in more modern settings, so it's not like she's a one and done from the past. But yeah, she's a great character who really deserves this time to shine.
So annoyingly, from the comics, canonically, both Sam's sister and Steve's mother are named Sarah.
But that's how it's going to. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a dawn of justice, you understand. And Hydra is going to bring Cap out of the time stream and brainwash him into thinking he's evil. And he's going to be like, I have to defeat you with this shield I have. And Sam is going to be like, but my sister and your mom have the same name. So now we do not have to fight. And Steve is going to be like, yes.
That's what you said about Civil War and both Tony and Steve's best friends being named James,
I mean,
who are also both in this episode.
if the Iron Gauntlet fits. So the other thing that I thought was terrific about this episode, it wasn't afraid to create a new character that was incredibly likable, and it wasn't afraid to reinvent an existing idea. Torres was not just enjoyable, but he was also delicious icing.
Yes.
No question. Likable character, very important fact.
And didn't die in the first episode.
Didn't die.
I was very worried. I didn't need that either. So good.
He got street stomped.
He got stomped.
He
We
got
all get
also-
stomped.
by Flag Smasher. who-
Yeah, talk about Flag Smasher a bit.
Flag Smasher kind of bores me as like a Captain America villain. Like, oh, okay, he's a bad guy. All right. It's just like at a certain point, everybody hates your flag. And so Flag Smasher is just kind of like a bad guy in the comics. And there's been multiple Flag Smashers, and they've fought everybody from Captain America to the Punisher to Moon Knight. And so everybody's fought Flag Smasher, right? It's what you do. But one of the things that I really liked here it's this idea of an ideology. Now, Hydra is a group, but Hydra is kind of a cultish kind of...
Yeah, it's more cult than terror organization at its
military
root.
power.
Yeah.
But this is a movement within people. Now, I am not a fan of demonizing positive, high-energy movements, but these guys immediately go to violence, and that's not okay. That's why I am a little bit like about U.S. Agent as well, I guess.
Yeah, him having been hyped for so long, specifically as U.S. Agent, and me not knowing a lot about the character's backstory, I was very surprised when he was introduced as straight-up Captain America, but I don't know that I've necessarily seen it from official sources that he'd been called U.S. Agent. It's just that the character that is now Captain America, John Walker, in the comics, eventually becomes U.S. Agent. So I just thought he was going to start there, so that took me by surprise.
So Cap lays down the shield because he has some problems with America, and America puts John Walker in charge of the shield, and so after Cap is like, no, I'm Captain America, John Walker's like, cool, I'm the U.S. Agent now. And he's kind of like Cap's gritty, Rob Liefeldian, angry cousin. He's kind of like a trash can fire, but he means well.
Is he like Homelander of the boys, or is that just an easy comparison to draw on? They're not really that similar.
It's an easy comparison to draw on.
Okay.
U.S. Agent is kind of like the Punisher wrapped in a Captain America flag.
I was going to say, sounds very Punisher. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was happy to see him here. Not really. I mean, I personally would have rather Citizen V from the Thunderbolts. That's a character I really appreciate. It's a Zemo, so that's a thing I enjoy. So I was really happy with a lot of what they gave us. I loved the honest realism of this as well. Whether it was the PTSD in Bucky's paused existence, or it was the painful truth of racism affecting our country, where Sam and Sarah couldn't secure a loan despite being one of them a superhero.
And the bank loan officer essentially forcing them to put on some kind of show. Like, so uncomfortable.
But it was necessary.
Yes.
I really wanted that. And, we were just talking about it recently on our brother show, Xi4P podcast. We were talking a little bit about how Black Knight is an everyman in a world of Ubermen. And it felt really good to see an everyman that is an Uberman have everyman problems. I don't wish these problems on Sam in the least, but if these characters are meant to be representational analogies for who we are, it's really great to see them go that extra mile and touch on that dark place in our own world that we really need to address.
I get that.
So I really liked a lot of what I got here. I think the thing that was the most disappointing was beautiful Bucky with his beautiful new hair.
So separate from the rest of the show.
Parts of it felt like he was in a really interesting rewrite of The Sopranos.
It kind of felt like Bucky's storyline could have been put out as some kind of like webisode thing. Not that it was bad. I don't understand how his new friend Yori could potentially be in any way significant to the season. And like, sure, Bucky's emotional arc is important, but it's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I want to see a little bit more of those characters interacting then. So if we don't get to that very quickly in the second episode, knowing we only have 6, it just sort of feels like it's taking too long, perhaps, to get to Bucky's story actually starting.
Now, I know there had been some discussion. I personally was surprised when they revealed that the young man that Bucky had killed was Yuri's son. But I understand that not everybody was so surprised.
I'm just always looking for stuff like that. So like immediately I was like, oh, this guy's son is dead. That's the one that Bucky killed. If it's supposed to be a surprise for the audience, totally. But I read something that suggested that it's a surprise to Bucky when he gets to Yuri's apartment that his dead son was a victim of the Winter Soldier. If it was a surprise for Bucky in that moment, I don't know why he was talking to this old man at random.
Well, I think maybe it's like pieces of the programming are breaking up and the last name felt significant.
So he didn't know.
But he did on some level, but subconsciously.
I could accept that, but after they so heavily hammered Dr. Raynor, his therapist, saying you don't have any contacts in your phone, you are ignoring calls from Sam, like after she's so heavily hit, you don't have any connections, to immediately go to us seeing him having a connection with a person that we then are supposed to think is separate from his mission to make amends. I just don't really feel like it all connected for me. And the little amount that we got of Bucky in this episode didn't help any of that.
I agree. I want them to mention that he's lying to his therapist, that he's hiding things from her to protect himself, so that what he's truly doing to deal with the reality of the world he's in isn't really being addressed and touched on. I really loved this first episode, all said and done. I enjoyed a lot of the elements we got. So much of it was a foregone conclusion. And so if these next 5 episodes can have a little bit more to them, look, WandaVision was pizzazz and finesse out the gate.
It sort of had an inherent, what direction it's going. This hex is bad. It has to be stopped. We don't really have that yet. That at least is not a foregone conclusion.
I mean, we kind of assume that this Captain America is going to be some kind of, Captain America, but we don't have any reason to think that other than the comics. So they could be doing something totally different, totally unique. And I'm excited. I'm hanging in. I mean, I don't like giving things 10 out of 10s. I think that's a bad juju kind of thing to do, right? It's not a smart move. But I definitely give this a solid 8 out of 10. This definitely kept my attention for the 40 minutes it was on. I want to see the next 5 parts. And I like the character collection I got here. I look forward to a few more faces and maybe a few more new faces. But what I got here, as long as I get more Torres, I can be kept pretty happy.
Yeah, probably the lowest grade I would give this is like a B+. Like I said, the spy thriller, government, political stuff, that's not really my tea in the first place. But I love the character of Sam, and I'm really loving to get to know his backstory a little bit more and see what the burden that Steve placed on him, how he deals with it, and the direction that it goes in. I'm a little bit nervous about the Captain America US agent stuff. I really don't need, violent white guy needs to be taken down story. I don't need white savior story either. So if his character goes in either of those directions, I'm not going to love it. I really need him to understand Sam's role as the person that Steve handed the shield to and to respect it. I think that's something that we need to be seeing represented more than the negative. We need to be seeing people as positive role models as well.
Well, from your mouth to Wanda's Hex's ears. And until next time, this has been the first response video for a Winter Soldier episode here on HTML. I'm Nico, and you can find me on Nico Action on Twitter and Instagram, NicoAction.
And I'm Kevo, and you can find me pretty much on whatever social medias as Kevo Really, KevoReallY.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
I was just trying to keep us to our